Every car you drive carries a number tied to your real identity, and you can't hide it. And nearly every time you drive that car, cameras are recording it. Not because you did anything, just because you drove past it. And that's the whole trick. The cameras photograph everyone and sort it out later. Your commute, the clinic, the church, the protest, the door you did not want anyone watching you walk through. All time-stamped, plate-matched, stored, and searchable by people you'll never meet under rules you never agreed to. They said it was about stolen cars. And then they said it was for missing kids. And then it became a map of every move every driver makes. And here's what they did not plan for. Those cameras have locations too. They sit on poles in plain view where they can be found, written down, and put on a map. And that's exactly what people started doing. Last week, our hero of the week was Will Freeman, the creator of DeFlock, an open source project mapping license plate readers with more than 105,000 currently mapped in the US. Over time, independently run local DeFlock groups began popping up on a mission to educate the public about flock cameras and ultimately push for legislative change to ban ALPR technology from their communities. Flock CEO sat down with Forbes and gave his opinion of DeFlock and called it a terroristic organization. That was his word, terroristic. Concerned citizens exercising their First Amendment rights. The people logging and selling the movements of tens of millions of Americans every day says the real threat is the volunteers writing down where the cameras are. Welcome to Hide and Speak, the weekly live stream about privacy and free speech. I'm Chris Miller, your host and the CMO for vp.net and Bmail. And I am joined by my co-host, Nathan. Nathan, how you doing today?
Hello, Nathan here, creative media specialist for vp.net. I'm very excited, as always, about this week's topic because this is one of our close to home ones that we like to harp on a lot. And I think it's going to be very informative for people, and hopefully we can spread the word around.
Literally close to home, all of our homes, all of our neighborhoods. So we have an awesome panel lined up here today. A few people we're still waiting for them to join, but already we got Paul here. Paul's from DeFlock UA. Paul, how you doing? Thanks for joining.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're very, very happy to have you here today. So let's see. We also want to thank everybody in the audience, whether you're watching live or catching the recorded version later. We really appreciate you. And please help spread the word by telling your friends and family about Hide and Speak. Next week, we have a really amazing guest lined up. I call him the godfather of modern encryption, Daniel J. Bernstein. Also, online, he's known as DJB. He's a mathematician, computer scientist, professor, and cryptographer who developed Cha-Cha 20, elliptic curve 225519, Poly 1305, message authentication code for TLS, and a whole lot more. With his protocols implemented in many applications like Apple iOS, the Linux kernel, OpenSSH, and Tor, as well as vp.net and Bmail. In addition to all that, he somehow finds the time to steer standards organizations towards stronger forms of encryption, often against overwhelming opposition, putting his own career and reputation on the line for the sake of better privacy and security for us all. He is an absolute legend, and we are so honored to have him join Hide and Speak, but it's a special time due to his time zone differences. So the stream will actually be next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Make sure you add it to your calendar because you do not want to miss that one. We also want to take a minute here to thank vp.net and Bmail because without them, we would not be able to do this. So if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is to sign up for one of them or both of them, which is a great way to protect your privacy online. And we just have a quick video to watch real quick. Imagine you want to contact your friend. You got to send them something in the mail, the normal snail mail, if anybody still uses that. So one option, which is like regular email, is just a postcard. So you send that, and anybody who sees this thing along the way, they know who you are. They know who the person who's receiving it is. They know what day and time you sent it, or at least when it was post stamp. They know your address, and they know the content of the message, and they know the person's address. So they got everything. They got all the information they could possibly want. So the next option would be like some of these other encrypted email providers that don't encrypt the metadata, like Proton, for example. That's sort of like having a postcard where the message is invisible. Maybe that's in a secret code, so nobody along the way can see the message, but they can still see the sender, they still see the receiver, they see which city it was sent from, they see your address, they see the receiver's address. More than enough information in a lot of cases to figure out what's going on right there. And again, like the subject line, that's like on the, the front of it says like, greetings from Hawaii. It's like, okay, well, now this person's in Hawaii now. And that's kind of like having the subject line visible. So then Bmail is like, you take a letter and you put it inside a safe and you seal that safe with a digital code and you ship the safe to the person. And he is the only other person in the entire world that knows what that code is. That's how Bmail is. So anybody along the way, good luck. Like, you're not getting inside. This is a safe. That's kind of how Bmail works. It's basically a vault, and the only people who have the code are you and the person that you're sending it to. Excellent. So, also just a reminder that the opinions of the people here on our panel are their own personal opinions who do not necessarily reflect the views of Hide and Speak, vp.net, BMail, DeFlock, or any of the organizations or guests are affiliated with. If you have a question for any one of the panel, please ask it in the live chat on YouTube or X, starting with the Q and a colon, and we will respond to it during the Q&A session later in the stream. So I see we still have some people that are trying to join, maybe having a little technical issue. So hopefully they'll be able to join us soon. But for now, we're just going to get started here. When the average person hears about the benefits of ALPR technology, it's not uncommon for them to think it's a great idea. Flag a stolen car in seconds, find an Amber Alert before it gets cold, locate suspected terrorists. It's hard to argue with until you look at the other 99% of us whose cars get logged the same way every day and stored in a database that any officer can search or a hacker could breach. And let's start where the public usually starts, with the argument that there's nothing to worry about. We have a big panel today. Well, we're supposed to. Hopefully they'll join us soon. And I want everyone to have lots of opportunities to speak. So we're going to use a round robin format, and we're going to ask a question and pass it around the room and give everybody a chance to answer. But let's just get started here. The most common defense of these cameras is that you are in public and you have no expectation of privacy. What is wrong with that argument? What do you think, Paul?
I mean, it doesn't account for duration and aggregation. You know, the public appearance of the license plate and having a picture of that taken is different than some AI processing, posing mosaic of my private life. So a camera is one thing. It's really the data processing on the back end that takes it from the simple aspect of being in public to you are trying to what you're doing. I think that distinction gets lost. I think DeFlock tends to sort of breeze right past that idea. I think that's public.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that people say that a lot to me. They're like, in public, you have no expectation of privacy. Like anybody could just take a camera and take a picture of you in public. And, I always push back on that. And I say, while that is true, if you started following a single person around and taking pictures of them everywhere they went and taking pictures of their car, at work, at home, where they're going, where they're visiting, and following that around, and then built an online database and let other people search that and look through, I'm pretty sure that probably breaks a few laws. At the very least, stalking, you know what I mean? So there's a massive difference between like a random person happens to catch you in the background while they're taking a picture at some location they're interested in versus, this organized searchable database. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
I think
the analogy I like to draw, sorry, it's like a glove, right? Like they might not see my hand, but they know based on the shape of that glove how big my hand is, where my pressure points are. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's a key distinction too. There's a difference between me being in the background of somebody's vacation photos or whatever, and then you keeping an actual database for who knows how long and who knows who has access to it. And then you then sell that data to other people too. So, and then you're running me through facial recognition and time stamping it with where I was and who I was with.
Yep. Absolutely. And like when they have the ability to look at bumper stickers on your vehicle and things like that too, like bumper sticker, a lot of times people will have their political affiliation or religious affiliation, even their kids' schools. Like, there's a lot of private information that people put on their car because on its own, it's not really private information. But as soon as you attach it to someone's identity, and now it actually is something private that they might not want public. So, it really changes the dynamic of things. Supporters always like the line that you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide. Where does that logic actually break down?
So I think of myself as an innovative guy. I don't always have time to get to the patent office to secure my innovations. So I have very legitimate reasons why I don't want corrupt police officers taking pictures of what I have. Same could be going as gambling becomes more pervasive throughout the country, particularly sports gambling. Being practical things such as seeing a quarterback with an injury could give you a leg up that other people don't have, and I just don't have any confidence that the police won't use it for these types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good cases for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think like it just at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter whether you're innocent or guilty. Like we still have an expectation of privacy. You're still allowed to have your own personal life and not have everybody have, information on that's been put in a database. So, I just think that they're looking at that the wrong way. Like it's not, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide. It's if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to prove. You know, like that's the way it's supposed to work. That's what, you know, the whole idea of a
Right.
requirement. Like if you're not, if there's nothing to say that you're likely involved, then there's no reason why anybody should be able to look into your data. You know what I mean? But for some reason, this works the exact opposite way. It's like, let's look at everybody's data, and then we'll try to figure out later if they did something wrong.
If I could toss one more thought there, it's like maybe I make a mistake, maybe I have a bad day, and you know I've done something embarrassing that I regret later. Now there's a record of it, and it's ever more difficult for me to recover from my mistakes and overcome embarrassment.
Sure,
It shouldn't be defined by that one moment of stress.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we had
not always that, you know, I have something to hide, you know, or I'm doing something wrong, but I also don't want people having my bank account information or my license plate number, or like you were saying, if my kid's bumper stickers on the back of my car. I'm not trying to hide these things necessarily, but I also don't want them to just be out there for anyone to access, especially, you know, people who may have vendettas against you or something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and like when we had Dr. Padfield on, and he had a really interesting idea, is that, you know, these things will develop a profile on you based on the locations that you've been, but the locations that you've been don't necessarily mean anything about who you are. You know, he gave the example of a paramedic who might regularly be driving down to the local crack houses to pick up people who've overdosed. And, you know, he's just there on official business, doing a good thing, saving lives. But if you look at his travel activities, you just see, here's a vehicle that keeps going in and out of crack houses all the time. You know what I mean? It looks like this is probably a bad person, you know,
Right.
and or somebody who's breaking the law. But in reality, he's there saving lives and doing his job. You know what I mean? So,
and then they
your
sell that
location-
information to your insurance company and to whatever other things that you're are a part of your life, just to raise your rates for all those types of things when you've done nothing wrong, because they just simplify it down to a data point. And it's not like there's a human being going over these things to verify, like, oh, this guy's actually a paramedic.
Yeah. You know, what's funny about some of these companies is they argue two sides of the exact same argument, essentially. So, like, you know, they regularly say, oh, it's just license plate data, it's not important, it's not a lot of information, blah, blah, blah. So then when you come with the argument of, well, because of that, you don't really know what's going on and you're improperly flagging people. So then they flip to, well, that's why we try to collect lots of other data so we can get a more accurate picture. Well, hang on a second. First of all, it's only license plate data, and now you're agreeing that the license plate data is not good enough, so you need to collect other types of data and try to form a more accurate picture. So, you know what I mean? Like, it can't be both things. They can't both be true. But, yeah. We kind of ran into that a lot when we had Dan on the podcast here. He had contradicted himself many times. But let's see. When you're explaining this to a skeptical neighbor, what is the one example that makes a camera reading plates suddenly feel like a really big deal?
I mean, the case out of Texas with that woman who was tracked across state lines always hits home. That was a severe breach of privacy and trust there. So that's what I lead with. And then the more local example I follow up with that I've been able to find out through the Haven't Been Flocked website is our city has been using it for city planning. Like, you look at the reasons that the police input when they run these searches and comb through those, and more than once, just recently as a couple months ago, the reason for their search was, quote, city planning. So that right there has busted open a whole bunch of stories, you know, a whole bunch of arguments as to why the police are actually using these things. They are.
In Texas, were you referring to the abortion case there?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, what's really interesting about that one is I've actually spoken to people who are pro-life and who are like very strongly pro-life about that particular case, and they're on our side even still. They're like, even though I don't agree with it, it's still not okay that they're using the license plate readers. So even people who don't agree with abortion and who think that lady shouldn't have done this still agree that it's not okay to use the license plate readers, which I thought was actually really cool. And you know, a lot of times people will agree to something that's not really good because it still supports their side. But these people are like, nah, man, like even still, like that's not it. That's not the way to do this. So, you know, I think this is an issue that is honestly, it goes across so many of these quote divisions, these dividing lines that we have. If people on both sides of almost every issue agrees with it, the only side that is for this is the side of surveillance. You know what I mean? If the people behind the surveillance state obviously support this, but basically everybody else is against it. And what's funny is that like even they're against it when it's turned on them. Like you saw Garrett Langley, the CEO of Flock, that said DeFlock was a terroristic organization. Literally all they're doing is watching the watchers. They're just saying, hey, these are where the cameras are. Like, so he thinks it's a noble and good cause to track everybody all over the country and as much information they possibly can about it. But the people who are keeping track of where those cameras are, that makes them terroristic. You know what I mean? Like, so even the people who are doing the watching, they don't want to be watched either. Hey, Tony, point. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, absolutely. Great to be here.
You're a little bit quiet. I don't know if there's.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. It's a little quiet, but we'll make do. I understood you, so that's all that matters.
Cool. I'm gonna log in through my laptop, so I'm a bit louder.
Oh, good. Perfect. We'll see you in a few.
Okay. See you soon.
Awesome. That's Tony is from DeFlock San Diego, which they've been going for quite a while now and had some success out there. So excited to have him join us as well. Well, let's see what we got here. Mission creep gets mentioned a lot with ALPRs. What is a real example of a camera sold for one purpose getting used for something completely different?
I mean, sticking with the Flock example, the city planning, right? Like,
yeah,
and even just taking it to more nefarious stuff that we've seen in the search reasons that they've given, things along the lines of like pride protesters. We've seen them doing simple wellness checks. So I mean, these cameras alone are being used for purposes other than what they're marketed for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bringing up what we've talked about on previous episodes, they have these things pointed at children's playgrounds, at schools. Like, it's for what purpose could that be? There's no license plates on a playground, and they have microphones now. It's just,
I watched a video yesterday. It was a guy with a sport bike, and he had an exhaust on it, and he was revving up his bike. And in under 1 minute, a police officer pulled up. And the cop was actually really cool and explained what was happening and showed him the system. And it was Flock. He goes, we have these Flock cameras all over this area, and they have microphones in it. And because his bike was really, really loud and it was backfiring, so it detected that might be a gunshot. They thought it was a high-powered rifle being shot. And the different cameras, because they were all in the area, were able to triangulate where that sound was. And within seconds, showed me a pinpoint on the map so I could drive right to you. So, I mean, this guy literally just revved his motorcycle, and in under a minute, there was an officer there on the spot to see him. So it's like, give you an idea of like, and again, that's just one of the side functions. That's audio. Like that's, originally they claimed it was just for gunshot detection. And, when you think about gunshot detection, it sounds like, okay, maybe they've developed some neat sensor that only detects gunshots. But then, you look at their marketing material and they've already changed it to now it can detect aggressive speech, which aggressive speech, like the only way to detect whether a speech is aggressive or not is that means it's just a full-blown microphone with AI listening to everything and trying to figure out what it is. You know what I mean? It's not a special gunshot detector. It's literally just listening to everything all the time and recording it, which, it's just wild. It started off as just these license plate cameras, but it's ballooned. I mean, they got video drones now flying around spying on people. So it's really out of control now.
Well, and think about that for a second too. It's not like the AI is ready to determine what is aggressive speech or whatever, right? So it could just be two friends like joking around, talking to each other, or quoting something from a movie and using an accent or something, or and then all of a sudden the cops show up a minute later thinking you have a gun or something.
All right, that's wild. Oh, so
I cheer for my sports team pretty aggressively.
Yeah, right. I think exactly. Yeah. Looks like we just had somebody join us. Welcome to Hide and Speak.
Hello. I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yep, perfectly.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, awesome. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for too long, but I'm running the DeFlock Tyler account over here in Texas.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, and appreciate you being here as much as you can. Awesome. Let's see. What we got here? Researchers have shown that these cameras can be broken into in under a minute. How much does the security of the data itself worry you on top of who is allowed to access it? Why don't we go to you first since you just joined us?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that?
Sure. Yep. It says researchers have shown these cameras can be broken into in under a minute. How much does the security of the data itself worry you?
Yeah, that's one of the main points that worry me, is because you're not only having to be concerned with the potential misuse or abuse by like police department or Flock's own employees, as we've seen, like the case in Dunwoody, Georgia, wherever Flock's employees and very own vice president were accessing the cameras inside of a children's gymnasium. Hundreds of times, but you also have to worry about the fact that people are able to access these cameras through a wireless connection fairly easily. None of the footage is encrypted, and just overall, you really don't know how many people actually have access to this information, to this data, and to this footage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that I saw that one in Dunwoody. That was horrifying. That's like one of the worst ones that I saw.
Yeah, like as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, why isn't every single city canceling their contract with this company? Yeah, it absolutely baffled me.
Yeah, and we covered a story a while ago that from 404 Media that they were able to get into 60 different cameras, the Condor ones, which are actually the AI cameras that have a lot more functionality than just the license plate readers. And some of them were using like default admin and password and username. None of them had multi-factor authentication, and some of them literally didn't even have a password on it. So they literally just connected to the camera, and he was even controlling the camera and changing the direction of it, and he was taking video of himself walking the street and waving to it, and it's like, you know, I mean, this is, and he's not like a hacker. He literally just walks right
absolutely.
in, you know what I mean?
And I mean, at this point, it's not just like 404 Media. I've seen several YouTubers do the exact same thing. There's a 30-minute tutorial on how to do it yourself online. Like, it's so terrifying to know like how many different people have access to this footage, and how it's not. Once these security issues are being addressed, the company continues to blatantly lie or ignore the issue.
Yeah, so, you know, we had the chief legal officer, Dan Haley from Flock, on our stream once, and we asked him about that specific case, and he just said, oh, well, that wasn't our fault. That was Verizon. They misconfigured it. And thinking that that makes it okay. And I'm like, but no, what you're admitting is not only do we have to trust all the police officers and we have to trust all the employees of Flock, we also now have to trust every single contractor that you ever work with in any location, none of which we ever even get to know about. You know what I mean? So that's the problem. There's
Absolutely.
so many different people here who could cause a problem. And like that one was unintentional. They just, you know, somebody made a mistake and didn't properly secure the cameras, but who knows who accessed those cameras in the meantime? Like, you know, there's no record of it because they were accessing it illegally. It's just wild.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Paul?
They're just admitting that they're profiting off of our data too.
Oh, yeah.
So what do I get from that?
What do you think, Paul? You worried about the data security?
I am, and to be honest, I maybe did not know sort of the total scope of security flaws that have been exposed on these things. I did not understand that there were that many examples of exposure. That's startling.
Yeah, it is startling.
Yeah, we had Shannon Morse on the other week, and she was talking about one of her friends that's in law enforcement, and they said they just all share the same password at their police department. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Like, how can you have proper oversight if you have, you know, 30 different officers using the same account? Like, you have no idea who's doing whatever. Yeah. So, and that's the problem. You know, I was trying to calculate it earlier, trying to figure out what it would take to do true oversight. And it was just in one small city that I think had 50 officers. And based on the number of searches, and this was just the number of searches that were done from outside agencies, not even their own officers, that they would need to almost double the size of their police force and have half of them literally just sitting there overlooking every one of these searches. And that is if they just spent 30 seconds per search to just look at the basic stuff. Is this a real case? Is this a real officer assigned to that case? You know, just the most basic level of oversight. They would need to almost double the size of the force just to be able to do that. So I mean, like, to think that there's any true oversight happening here, it's ridiculous. There's absolutely not happening. You know, every one of those cases that we're talking about, it wasn't Flock that came forward. It wasn't the police officers that came forward. It's some citizen usually that did a search on their own stuff and said, hey, what is going on here? And they're the ones that cracked the case. So, I mean, like, the only oversight is what we're doing, which that's crazy.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like so much information that we wouldn't even know as well without public records requests, that it seems like cities are making extremely difficult to access as well. At least I found that in my city. I've made 4 different records requests and I got 0 responses for the first 3. And for the 4th one, I got a response 5 days after the legal 10-day timeline, which they have to respond. And their response was, there is no responsive records to anything related to Flock, despite us having over 100 in my area.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well, and I've seen them trying to charge people that ask for these records money. Like, oh, it'll be thousands of dollars if you want to get all these records. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely insane.
And then who voted for any of these things, right? I don't remember voting that I wanted surveillance cameras everywhere, selling my data to random companies and possibly international companies as well.
Yeah, that's insane.
That was something else I thought about as well. It's like, if these random YouTubers, not hackers, just people who went online, did a little bit of research and can access all these cameras within their city, what makes you think that other larger organizations and stuff can't also access? Like, it's a huge security threat to every single American.
Yeah, you know, when we had that guy from Flock on, I said to him, at the worst case scenario, this technology could be used by hackers, could be hijacked by somebody and used to assassinate a world leader. And he laughed at me and he thought that that was the most ridiculous thing ever. And 2 weeks later, Israel announced that they had hacked traffic cameras in Iran and used it to assassinate their Ayatollah. And I was like, that's the thing. That's what I said could happen. You know what I mean? So at its worst, like, it could literally be used to kill a world leader. I mean, like, the security risk there is mind blowing. You know, right after that was announced, Iran went and ripped every one of their traffic cameras out and threw them in the garbage. They're like, well, this is not a good idea, obviously. You know, but when is everybody else going to wake up to that real risk? Let's see. When somebody points to a real case where a plate reader found a missing kid or caught a violent suspect, how do you answer them?
I always say the first thing is that you can't just acknowledge the good part of something. You can't let, okay, yes, it solved the case. You can't let that overcloud your judgment for the very real issues the exact same system creates. And it's honestly, yeah, it's crazy to not acknowledge all of the security vulnerabilities that come along with the same system that is also able to help in some ways. There's overwhelmingly negative effects to what I would say are the positive of the system.
Agreed. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I guess the thing that I point to first is it didn't prevent the crime. They haven't actually stopped the crime from happening. They just caught who did it. The other thing I mentioned is, like, the police presumably were solving crimes before these cameras. So it's not like they can do their job without these cameras.
Yeah, there was a city in California, and it was like a fairly rich city, and they were having a major problem with property theft. So they put in a bunch of Flock cameras thinking this is going to solve the problem. And in like the first month, property theft went down because they were all over the news and all over the place talking about, hey, we just installed cameras everywhere. So Flock took that 1 month of data and ran with it and like actually did like a national ad campaign talking about this reduced all crime by X%, which was like a completely wild and bold claim. They never made any claim about all crime. It was only about property theft, and it was only for literally the first few weeks that they were installed. But after 3 years, they went back and looked at the data in the city, and all of the crimes had stayed exactly the same. There was no difference on any of the crimes except for property theft, which in fairness was the one that they were trying to deal with. And property theft went up by 5%. And they spent $180,000 of taxpayer money to do that, and then ripped out their cameras, published all their data, and said, like, this is it. This doesn't work. You know, it didn't work for us. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Hey, Tony. And this also reminds me of, you remember when we had the sheriff on with the DeFlock CTO, and I asked him, doesn't this create a problem even in the police departments where now we have police officers watching and listening to flock cameras instead of actually going out there and finding criminals? Because the flock data needs to be fed by real police officer information, people that are actually out there finding criminals and then entering that information into the system. But if they're sitting in the police department all day watching cameras, then, or just waiting for flock to tell them what to do, then how do we actually feed back into the system to get proper data to protect our citizens and do what the police are supposed to be doing instead of just sitting there watching kids playing on a playground?
Like AI brain rot for cops.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just an overwhelming amount of data. I don't know how anybody can even process it all.
Yeah.
Do any of you think that there's actually a version of an ALPR system that could protect people's privacy and rights while still being a useful tool for the police?
Yes. Actually, it's an interesting question.
Personally, I'm gonna say no. Even if we look at, so I'm from Texas, so even if like at Texas in 2019, they had red light cameras, which were compared to Flock, a much less technologically advanced camera. It takes just a quick snapshot, and those were actually deemed unconstitutional and in a violation of your Fourth Amendment. And so, to me, there's just no way to collect this amount of information and it to just be there's too much potential for this amount of information to be utilized in the wrong way. And even if it was more protected, you still have the issues with ALPR, automatic license plate reader. So assuming it has AI integrated into it, like there's still so much room for false arrest, and just there's too much danger that I feel comes with this type of technology that, like someone said earlier, we were able to solve crime and do things without these cameras. I just don't think it's necessary, and I think it's too much of an invasion of privacy for Americans.
Yeah, no, I agree. What are you saying, Tony? What do you think?
First of all, can you hear me? Is it easier to hear me now?
It's still really quiet. I'm not sure if the input mic is on the wrong mic or something, but I can hear what you're saying, so it's still worth it.
Okay, I'll try as best I can. It's an interesting question that was brought up in the CPP meeting, the Commission on Police Practices meeting that we had last Saturday. Flock ALPR cameras were brought up, and someone, her name is Patricia De Armand, and her brother Christopher De Armand was murdered in a pretext stop by SDPD, and she believes that her brother was murdered using ALPR cameras. She believes that her brother was gang stalked by the police using the ALPR flock cameras. But she brings up an interesting point. She thinks that they might be, ironically, the tool that could end pretext stops. Meaning, if flock was exclusively used for the things that cops ordinarily use for, tinted windows that they ordinarily pull people over for, that lead to oftentimes violent interactions with black and brown people. And the flock cameras might be a way to just send people a ticket in the mail, as opposed to having to deal with the potentially violent altercations with police that, maybe using a pretext stop for something like a broken taillight that gets magnified into, how many times have we seen it, magnified into, someone loses their life because, trigger happy police, went on a rampage. So
I could totally understand. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I guess just to complete that thought, I think there is in a perfect world, sort of in a perfect scenario where the police could be trusted, which we're not in. Then I think that there is maybe space for the cameras to be used. But the problem is, as we just learned about like 2 weeks ago, the Times of San Diego reported last November there was 2 men that were falsely arrested and imprisoned, and they're now both suing the city for $1.5 million each. The total, $3 million, which is more than the $2 million contract that Flock has to be turned on in the city of San Diego for the entire year. That lawsuit alone, by the time the dust settles on the lawsuit, the city will probably settle out of court, and they'll probably get something like, I don't know, maybe $500,000 each. So that'll be close to $1 million. So that'll be close to half of the Flock contract. So I mean, just that circumstance alone, there was one gentleman was in jail for a month over Thanksgiving, and it's all due to police not getting the license plate and running the make of the vehicle using the Flock cameras to get vehicles matching that description, and then they falsely arrested someone, and then they brought an eyewitness who falsely, pinned the wrong suspects, and then they had to go through the whole process of, they were essentially, they described feeling guilty until proven innocent, which is, essentially the problem with Flock, that it, flops the presumption of innocence on its head and turns us all into suspects for any and everything that anyone, maybe any crime that anyone may be committing at any time.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else got something?
I would say, like, realistically, probably not. Like, there's too many imperfections in the police. There's too many imperfections in the security. If we assume that all of that could get resolved, like, the technology is there to. So I have a camera on my front door, and it's it watches my private front door, so it's not invasive to neighbors or anything like that. But one thing I do is I make sure that the indicator light is off. Like, I go into my settings and I turn off that recording indicator. Like, assuming all the imperfections of security and all the imperfections of police, we figure that out. Like, technology-wise, it would be interesting for them to have an indicator light on them, so you can tell when they're recording, and B, like, there are moments of crisis, like an Amber Alert. If we have to find a child and they like flip on the Flock cameras for 48 hours across the state or something like that, that might be workable. Now, I don't like that, and that's not something I'm going to advocate for. But there are sort of like technical solutions that would make like use cases.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that I don't think there really is a good way to do it, because even if we resolve all of the issues around the police and the way that it's supposed to be used properly, you could never resolve the security issues. There's always going to be the possibility that somebody can hack into those, and it's too much power to have in one system, too much information that it's going to be extremely attractive to hackers. You know what I mean? Like the information there could be wildly valuable for all different types of reasons. So, I think a lot of conversations about this end up on, what if there's a warrant requirement? What about this? And they're always focused on what if it's used properly, but like, it's not going to be used properly, and you're never going to get criminals to agree to follow the rules. You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah, like just like you're saying, Go ahead.
Sorry, it's not like cameras don't already exist. Like, if there is a crime in a location, the cops can ask for the footage from that specific location for that specific reason. I really can't find any reason why they should be able to access footage and locations of people at any time, at any point, for any reason.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Chris, even if we could fix all the cops and everybody was perfect, you're still just creating a target, because that data now exists. So there's going to be people who want that data, and they probably have nefarious means and nefarious intentions. So the protection of that data obviously is just not up to snuff. And it's just creating a problem that doesn't need to be there. Now, sure, their selling point sounds great. Oh, we're going to find missing kids and save all these people and this and that. But those stories are really far and, I don't see too many of those popping up in the news. It's usually somebody stalking their ex-girlfriend or cops misusing it. So
Yeah, that consolidation of power argument, that's an interesting. I hadn't thought about that. That's compelling.
right. And once you put that kind of power in somebody's hands, you know, that's the absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's just not, it's just not a human thing to me, you know, this whole thing is just dangerous.
Jonathan, thank you for joining us. What do you think? Do you think there's any version of ALPR that could be used that preserves people's privacy and rights, but still helps the police?
I don't think that there is, because the data is not stored correctly, encrypted correctly, and I don't think that's where the industry is moving. What was it, 3 weeks ago during Axon Week? Like, what they're gearing up for is just AI everything, cameras everywhere, AI covering the cameras. I don't think there's any way, with the state of the surveillance architecture that is being built and the motivation behind it, that there's any way on this current trajectory that it can be used just for law enforcement purposes and have it stopped at that.
Can I hop in here real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I think one of the big things we have to establish is there's a big difference between ALPR of a decade or more ago, because we've been using it as a technology for quite some time now, and what we have now. The advanced technology is different, and it's not just the AI, but it's also the method of video and everything. And so I think that's really key when you're talking about talking to policing agencies and their supporters. And here in Bend, the Rural Organizing Project found out that the flock cameras have been turned on to the national setting to share nationally. There were 279 hits to our local cameras before they turn it off, and that was just a default. So I think that if this industry was interested in caring about people and their privacy, these settings would be turned off by default, and there would be a choice to turn it on, and that would be, hopefully a discussion by communities to choose to do that. And as long as you're not approaching it from that angle, then there's not a positive way of doing this. Not that I think there is in the first place, but just that by default your attitude is bad if you have it default turned on.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, well, if it was up to us, we'll get rid of them. So unfortunately, I don't think it is yet, but we're working on it. So we just got to keep fighting it. So let's see. For anyone who's ever heard of it, what is DeFlock in one breath? Who wants to jump in here?
I would call it a grassroots effort to protect the Fourth Amendment rights.
I like it. Anybody else have anything to add? What do you think? Does anybody here use the term terroristic in their definition? I'm guessing not. What was the moment with Flocker? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, the name itself kind of is self-descriptive. DeFlock. It's a movement against this giant billion-dollar company that is trying to invade America.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, what was the moment with Flocker ALPRs that made you angry enough to actually do something about it? Jonathan, why don't you tell us?
My story is different than most. I got in this. Somebody on Reddit said, "I wish there was a petition to get these out of town," and I started a petition. And that was the moment. Somebody just asked. I figured the person didn't know how to create a petition, so I started a petition, and that's what got me involved in this whole thing. Is just trying to teach somebody how a petition works. After that, though, I started researching, and holy cow! and now I'm kind of hyper fixated on the whole surveillance state and what I can do to stop it.
Awesome, I love that. How about you, Paul? What got you into it?
The one they put up around the corner from my house. I noticed that, and I started noticing them everywhere. It becomes downright agitating. You start modifying your behavior to drive through different parts of town, and it's like, this is nuts. This is absolutely. I don't need to change how I drive to the grocery store. Got to do something.
I like it. How about you, Tony?
For me, it was the meeting that we had back in December of last year, where it was brought to my attention that these flock ALPR cameras were about to be turned on, and there was a big city council meeting that was happening at the time, a big fight. It was about 7 months ago now, and we ended up losing. They ended up voting in favor of turning the cameras on 6-3, but just the public's overwhelming reaction and response against the cameras. There was over 100 organizations that were there. There was over 300 people that showed up. There was over 7 hours of testimony, and the fact that San Diego City Council still voted in favor of them was a huge disappointment. And I came back 2 weeks later, and I was really disappointed and really discouraged to see that there was only about 3 other people in the room, and neither one of them was there to speak for, on behalf of Flock. And I realized kind of in that moment that a lot of momentum is lost when, we don't sort of get our way with things. But we have to keep fighting regardless of whether or not, we have to keep pushing them and show them that they're not just gonna vote something in and there's not going to be any reaction, or there's not going to be any consistent pushback from on behalf of advocates that don't want it, that want city council to respect our privacy rights. So that was kind of the story of DeFlock, was starting a channel for people, an organization locally for people to express that, to funnel that.
Very cool. What about you, DeFlock Tyler? What was your origin story?
Well, I actually didn't even really know about flock cameras until about 2 months ago, when my friend had told me, it was in a spot where I hang out all the time. I'm there multiple times a week. They're like, "Do you see that camera right down there? That's a flock camera. Have you heard about them?" And they told me a little bit about it, and I went home that night, and I think one of the first videos I found was one of Ben Jordan's videos. I don't know if anyone here has seen it, but he gets into kind of those security vulnerabilities and how easy it is to access these cameras wirelessly. And just the more that I looked into it and found out that, these cameras had already been in my city for almost a year at this point, and I had no idea. I just started asking people I knew, like, "Hey, have you heard about these cameras?" And nobody knew about them. It's like they've just been quietly operating without anybody's knowledge. So I just knew that more people needed to know about this, and that this issue, honestly, is kind of it's very bipartisan issue, I would say. Nobody wants mass surveillance. Nobody wants data centers. Those are two things that people on every side of the aisle are willing to say, we don't want this. This is not okay. And so really, I just wanted to create the space and give the opportunity for the people of my county to say, this is not what we want, and to actually know what these things really are, because there really wasn't any press coverage and just not a lot of knowledge about what the capabilities of these cameras actually are.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, for me, honestly, I wasn't all that familiar with them until probably about a year ago, and when I first started learning about them. And yes, some of Ben Jordan's videos were some of the first ones I saw as well. And I was shocked that this was going on, and that nobody really seemed to be making a big deal about it. It seems like something that I expected more people to be revolting against. But yeah, it's just hopefully more and more people are waking up to it, and they're going to start pushing back here.
And I
Let's
will
see.
say, I think that people are. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I
You're
think
good.
that more people are, especially in recent months. I feel like, at least online, and I mean in person, a lot more coverage and awareness of the issues of these cameras are being brought to light, and I think that it's just growing a lot more, the movement against these cameras.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to your other point there from before. The security vulnerabilities is really, it's what is their intention with this? This is a $1 billion tech company, and you're telling me that they can't secure their devices with even basic encryption or not having shared passwords and things like that. So it almost feels like they are intentionally leaving it open to people who want to use it for nefarious means, which is like, why? You're really doing the exact opposite of what your branding says that they're trying to achieve, which is protect, children and catch criminals.
And
If
stop
they think
all
we're
crime
terrorists,
and
we should
terror.
anticipate it's a honeypot.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. What is a win, big or small, that your side has had in the last year that you are proud of? Anybody could jump in on that.
We got the city council to summon the chief of police and demand a presentation on the current state of flock usage in the city. We were able to do that. It took probably 6 people emailing pretty regularly, but sure enough, they had them in.
Oh, that's awesome. Good start, definitely. What's going on
We
over in
hit
Tyler?
We hit over 1,000 signatures on our petition, and we just recently were featured on the local news, so that definitely helps boost the awareness and kind of get out there. And I'm just hoping to continue to get some more pressure on my local elected officials to actually do what the people want and work for the people like they're supposed to.
Awesome. How's it going over in San Diego?
On our end, we just had our budget meetings a couple weeks ago where we had the opportunity. So there's actually a stipulation in the contract here in San Diego that Flock has where if we're in a budget crisis, which we happen to be in, that we can discontinue the contract. And so there was a really, really big push to get Flock discontinued. And we did have one city council member change his position. And so we did get a closer vote from 6-3 initially last December. We did get it back down to 5-4. And we had a huge surge and visible increase in the amount of organizations pushing against Flock, the amount of people. And I was really proud to see there was a lot of people, a lot of really like young people, like people just out of high school, some people even in high school that were concerned about Flock. So it's definitely catching on as like a grassroots movement that is, as DeFlock Tyler mentioned, it's like bipartisan. It's totally nonpartisan issue that it seems to be really drawing interest from everyone, from every political aisle.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to see that too.
And
Go ahead.
Go on, Chris.
No, go ahead, John.
In Bend in December, we were able to get the city council to cancel their Flock contracts, and then about a month ago, the city manager had pushed out the city manager's report stating that the police were going to use a retail theft grant to implement Axon ALPR cameras in the same locations that the Flock cameras were out. And we got that to be stopped in the short term, and in the long term, it's going to be brought before council instead of being done behind the scenes, and the public will have a chance to comment. At the county level, we were able to teach the Board of Commissioners that what the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office wanted to do by installing Axon ALPR cameras, Fleet 3 cameras inside their vehicles, that it goes against a Senate Bill 1516 some of the requirements there that they didn't have ready. And the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office and the Board of Commissioners said that Axon Fleet 3 cameras would not be installed, and ALPR cameras wouldn't be installed unless it comes before the board again with public comment. So we are able to push back a little bit. I view those two things with the ALPRs being as a win, because in both instances, if there wasn't pushback at all, it would have just happened.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Susie, hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I've actually been listening all the time. I've had some real problems getting my mic and my camera engaged. I had to switch to a different browser. I will talk to you about this afterwards.
Sure.
Because I've missed so much of the opportunity to do inputs, I kind of want to catch up now, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Okay.
wanted to say hello.
The reason I got involved with the concerns about flock, I'm representing our local Highland Park, Illinois Indivisible group. And in January, somebody said, we've got these cameras snapping pictures of license plates. We don't really want them. Write a letter to our city councilman to ask to reconsider the contract. And I went to the joint inbox for our whole city council, and I basically said, I don't trust these people. They've done some terrible things like violate Illinois law, because we had already had the instance where there was data sharing with organizations that are not considered trustworthy by our statutes. So I said we shouldn't do this. And I got a letter, not from anybody on our city council. I got an email back from our city manager who said, no, nothing to see here, folks. This is all really good. And if you really want to, talk to the police chief and me, we'll be glad to do it. And she gave me some references. And I started looking up the references. And of course, I started eating my teeth, and I'm absolutely appalled at what I found. So I've been chasing those references ever since. And I haven't gotten back to her because there's just too much evidence. So that's how I got into it, simply by being told there's no problem, go convince yourself. And I started looking, and there is a big problem. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. We talked a little bit about the creep, the scope creep on what these readers are doing. And I like the fact that, and I hadn't thought about this, that on the one hand, they argue, we're just taking pictures of license plates, and on the other, but we're really doing a lot more. And there's a big bad faith disconnect that we want to talk about. But I think to some extent, and I think it's important to take on the issues we're taking now, which is the security, which is the creep of the surveillance, which is the errors, and the lack of not only Flock's bad security that you can easily break into the cameras, but the way individuals share data, share access. All this stuff is very real. But I think in a way, it's a pretext and a smokescreen. And this is what the point I want to make. The people who backed development of Flock in particular, not the whole industry, but Flock in particular. This is the Garrett Langley and all them. The people who, the venture capital that supported them is people like Peter Thiel. Yeah. And Peter Thiel is probably one of the most reprehensible human beings on earth. He's right up there with the person sitting in the White House and some of the others. And he's actually gone on record and saying he doesn't think that liberty and democracy are compatible. He's very much an anti-democratic authority figure. He's a lot of the money and the impulse behind organizations like Palantir. Palantir is in partnership with Flock. And I think that our concern about our day-to-day security, as important as it is, I think it pales when we think of the long-term security and concern about the surveillance state that this kind of technology enables. I think it's important to fight it at the local level and fight it at the minute level we're doing. But I also want to alert people that we have real long-term problems. This kind of technology, it's sort of like the thing that everybody gets all these emails with all these unsolicited links, and they're all for good reasons. It's your heating company. It's your healthcare provider. Click a link and tell us what you think, blah, 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 blah. You get used to doing it, and pretty soon you're clicking all kinds of links that are opening you up to data breaches and fraud. It's phishing attacks. And I think the same thing is going on with our surveillance. We're kind of getting used to being surveilled all the time, and people aren't fighting it hard enough. But this is where it starts. We are on our way to a surveillance state, to the benefit of people like, well, Flock is making enormous amounts of money. We know that. And the same arguments that say, oh, the people who provide abortions are making a lot of money on it, and that's why they're doing it. Well, guess what, folks? The people behind surveillance technology are making a lot of money on it, and they don't care about you because they want their money. But we're also being conditioned to allow and submit ourselves to this kind of surveillance, which can only lead to bad outcomes. They're using it to surveil political affiliations, healthcare choices, immigration status, and who knows what when Palantir gets more and more data about us. So I wanted to make that point because we hadn't made it yet, and it's one of the real concerns I have. I'm concerned about what's happening day to day in our communities as we drive and go about our business, but I'm also concerned about the long-term implications that this technology has been sponsored by anti-democratic forces and will definitely be used anti-democratically more and more in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that we see with the government, right? As soon as they implicate these things or implement these things, it never goes away. They don't, as soon as they have these types of powers and controls, they never give it back. We saw that with the Patriot Act. So I think it's important that now is the time for people to get together and talk about these things like we're doing here today and unite. It's not a partisan thing. It's everybody against the surveillance state.
Absolutely.
No, it's a surveillance state against everybody. That's what we're fighting. They're attacking us.
This is true.
And we need to push back. And then we get to the point that you made. Everybody against them.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. In your local communities, is there a vote, a council meeting, or a deadline coming up that people should have on their radar? How about you, Paul?
Our contract doesn't renew until 2029, and we're still trying to. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant, so working through the municipal code and all that stuff's new thing for me. But as far as I can tell, they have to renew the budget for the contract on a yearly basis. That budget's due by the end of the year. So I think when city council comes back from recess, they're going to start kicking around the budget stuff. And Flock in our budget is simply listed as a quote subscription. It doesn't actually list the name. It's just subscription fees. So they're able to kind of tuck it in that way.
Yeah.
I think because it requires a legislative vote, we'll have the chance to speak on it.
Nice.
I haven't scheduled anything for the fall. That's sort of what I'm keeping my eye on.
Awesome. Well, I hope it goes well. What's going over on Tyler?
Right now, I don't have any upcoming meetings or agendas that are regarding to Flock. I've actually been having difficulty getting Flock back on my Commissioner's Court agenda so that public comment can be made. So it's been a process, but I'm just gonna continue to reach out to my commissioners and try and pressure them into getting this on the agenda because it is a very viral topic that is happening right now in Tyler, and it definitely needs to be addressed.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that. How about you, Tony? What's going on in San Diego? Anything coming up?
I think he might be AFK for now.
Okay, no problem. Jonathan, what's the current status there? I know you got some stuff you're working on.
So we don't have anything in the immediate future, but something that one of the people watching this show and commenting on YouTube right now is starting to create is a spreadsheet that tracks all the agendas throughout the county. And then after that's built and shared. We're going to start going through each individual contract and start tracking in each city or at the county level when the contracts expire, so that we have time to prepare and be ready for that time. But for right now, in the immediate future, there's no date here in Bend that we're concerned about that I'm aware of.
All right. Susie, what's going on in your area? Anything coming up?
Not right now. Our contract isn't up for a while. And right now, our city government, as I say, I have trouble getting to the council members. The manager seems to intercept the communications. And when I communicate directly to council members, they forward it to her and she responds anyway. We're a very conservative community, I'm sorry to say, although they like to liberal wash everything, but they're really very conservative. Our next thing will be when the contract comes up. The other thing I want to say, which we haven't talked about yet, is there is a week of anti-ALPR action that's coming up starting August 18th, I think, to the 23rd. I'm still hoping that we can get some activity from our community, from people who are concerned about this, to raise awareness and start to pressure the city council to be a little bit more responsive to our concerns than they've been so far. It's a long shot because not everybody in the community is with us. And yeah, thank you. That web address that is showing now is where you need to go to sign up to get information. DeFlock, by the way, is in the heart of that effort. And, maybe we can get something going there. Otherwise, we're pretty much dead in the water until the contract comes up and they just renewed. They just re-upped.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully something comes up soon for you. Let's see. What has been the most effective tactic for you guys in your local communities? How are you, Paul? Sorry. That's fine. Go for it. No, go ahead.
Okay. I would say the most effective thing would be social media. So I am also someone personally that, I handle some media. And so I go around and I try to take pictures of as many flock cameras in my county as possible. And, when people recognize something, oh, that's at the grocery store I go to every Sunday. Oh, that's right by my work. Oh, that's right by my friend's house. Oh, that's right by my house. Like, that's where I go to school. When people actually, you make that connection to where people are, it hits a little harder for them. So I think that's been pretty effective because honestly, that's how I felt. I'm trying to help people come to the same recognition I did. And when I realized, oh, I've been driving past these every single day and I can't go home without passing one, it made me feel a little more connected to this issue. And so I think going out and posting the location of these, it has also really helped the traction with my page and just really helps people share as well because they're like, oh, this is where we live. Let me show it to my brother, my cousin, my sister, so that's been really helpful. Another thing that I wanted to mention, because I don't remember who was talking about putting a document together, but I'm trying to create a living document where I'm going to have several different sections, but the first one will kind of just be stating what my goal is for DeFlock Tyler and how we're trying to remove ALPRs, which is also another angle to my current strategy is that I'm not just focusing on flock. I actually want to get all ALPRs out of Smith County because they also work with Motorola and Axon currently. And we've seen a lot of towns where flock has left, immediately another ALPR company comes in and tries to just swoop in real nicely. So I want to make sure that we are staying away from that. Another thing that I am very specific about in my strategy is that whenever we do get our contract canceled, we want every single camera to be physically covered up or removed the same day that the contract ends, because you see in a lot of cities that end their contracts, Flock actually continues to leave the cameras up and continues to watch them without the city even having access to that information anymore. And so that's another important thing. And lastly, on this document, I'll also have just a ton of different resource links of articles, YouTube videos, any information that I've kind of done some research on, or any records I've found of our city connection with flock safety. Just have it on there and have it on my page so that people can just have somewhere to start to look into this. And like you mentioned, DeFlock org, they're a great place to start. They have a lot of different resources on there for like filing Freedom of Information Acts, and they have the map, which is super helpful. And that map is also user kind of operated. So if you ever see a flock camera and you look up the DeFlock map, go ahead and check that it's actually marked on the map, because those cameras are mapped by people who see a camera and then mark it on the map. So you can either do that by downloading the DeFlock app and you can submit cameras through there, or you can submit it through OpenStreetMap.
Hey, Susie, what's up?
Yeah, I want to respond a little bit to a couple of points that my colleague from Tyler has made. I live in Highland Park, Illinois, which is north of Evanston, Illinois. We're both lakeshore, lakefront suburbs. Evanston, you might have heard about, they had some horror stories and they had some protests, and they did manage to get their city council to rescind the Flock contract. There's two things. One is Flock did not take the cameras down right away. There was an ongoing concern for a long time. Finally, like about 6 months later, they took the last of them down. So yes, Flock, once they get somebody to pay them to put something up, they are very reluctant to give up that source of information. And you have to realize that's part of their business model. They don't sell equipment, they sell connectivity, they sell network access to information across the country. And it's very lucrative, as I pointed out earlier. So they will continue gathering data as long as they can, even if a municipality denies them a contract and gives up their own stake in it. The other thing is that once you get rid of Flock, you have to worry about the rest of the industry. I understand that shortly after Flock was booted out of Evanston, Axon came in. Or as some of my colleagues in DeFlock, Illinois say, the city had to give cops new toys. So that's another thing to be concerned with. And in fact, in some ways, it's even misleading to say that our efforts are against Flock. Our efforts are against the ALPRs. Our efforts are against the surveillance state, not any particular manifestation. It's ALPRs. It's the body cams. It's all kind. It's the surveillance. It's the Ring cameras. Even though Ring is no longer feeding data to Flock. So it's not just them, it's the whole industry. And it's the surveil. As I say, I think to some extent, the crime aspect that we're talking about, besides the fact that they scope creep out of that immediately anyway, that's not their real purpose. That's just their pretext, it's their foothold. We are up against a broader surveillance state and industry that is not always being recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just covered a story recently in Dayton, Ohio, where they canceled their contract, but they weren't sure if they were legally allowed to remove them because of the way the contract with Flock was written, and they weren't sure if Flock had actually turned them off or not. They just lost access to the data, like you were saying. And they weren't sure if they were legally allowed to disable them themselves. So they actually had Public Works go around and stick trash bags over them, because like we don't know what else to do. We're just gonna cover them in trash bags, and like it's wild that you can have surveillance cameras in your city and not know if you're even legally allowed to disable them. Like as the city itself, to not know if you could turn off the surveillance, that's crazy. Like,
Well, Flock in particular in their contracts, they do a lot of fancy footwork and fancy language to make it very, very difficult to know what their real stake is. On the one hand, they say, oh, the data belongs to the municipality, it's not ours, but the municipality doesn't get it until they download it. And in the meantime, there's other clauses hidden in the Flock contracts that say they can disperse that as they think is important or to comply with other lawful enterprises. So it's very slippery. John Padfield, who you mentioned earlier, I forget which one it is, but somewhere in his body of recordings, he's got some very, very astute and insightful commentary about the language in the contracts. It's worth combing through it.
I have a line highlighted from our contract. Flock has perpetual license to use aggregated, de-identified data for improvement, marketing, development, diagnostics, other offerings, and crime prevention efforts. So yeah, they are very sneaky. They tell you that image is deleted.
Well, that's the aggregated de-identified data. There's also things where I think they are allowed to give more focused data for law enforcement purposes to other clients. They have it. They say it's not theirs. It's not under their control. But somehow they always manage to get it out when they want to. So they don't own it until they do. They don't recognize that they own it until they do.
Yep. And No Mercy, what's on your mind?
Hey there, thanks for letting me get on, and thank you so much, Susie, for talking about like the larger surveillance stack, because that's one of the things that I fear that if we just focus so much on Flock that we miss some of the larger pictures. And I think DeFlock Tyler brought it up earlier. Denver is a really good example. On the same day that they announced bringing down Flock cameras, they were bringing the Axon cameras up. And I think it's really important to also talk about Palantir and the way this whole stack kind of connects. You don't really actually have to. So give me a second here because I'm trying to organize some information in my head. So you don't actually have to have connections between these groups for their stacks to benefit off of each other. And so with Flock going down and Axon picking up the pipeline with their subscription process, you have a connection through that to like the layers of Oracle that Larry Ellison is pushing. Many of these things are connected through the Founders Fund and A16Z using Anduril. And also you have connections between Thiel and like obviously I think obviously like SpaceX. The use of Thiel's Gotham is the same layer that connects to Oracle, which also connects to this Axon layer. So these are all just like really, I think, like important things to realize when you're looking at the bigger scale. I'm sorry, I'm kind of crushing all these things from different topics together. It's hard for me to address them individually. But I think like one of the important local things is a lot of these come in through these really weird procurement processes where we use like our local cities use cooperative purchasing agreements and consent agendas to slide in these subscriptions underneath the community's nose. And so I think for people trying to fight this, trying to understand how your procurement process works and what your city is agreeing to buy through testing in other locations, and your city is just like cooperatively, like here in Bend, I think it was Minnesota. I can't remember where ours was, but there was another state like Midwest that was the one who actually did all of the testing for the body cameras for Axon, and we just signed on, and that's how we got our body cameras and our Fleet 3 cameras. And then the final thing I want to stick in there is there's all sorts of data now out there about how AI can de-anonymize data. So when you see in that fine print that we don't share your information, but we do use de-anonymized data for training our AI models and improving our products and sharing with our third-party partners, that's all stuff that we're starting to learn how to de-anonymize now. So that's something that's scary. That like this is like talking about ALPRs a decade ago, and now is The difference is that because we can aggregate data, we have decades and decades of data that have been collected from the internet that we didn't have the human energy to deal with before. And now all of a sudden we're able to take all that data and aggregate it and de-anonymize it and then feed it into a large language model and teach it. That's all pretty intimidating.
Yeah, another
Almost like
thing that
our-
Dr. Padfield was talking about with language, which I thought was really good, is how the definition changes in a lot of the privacy policies that say we won't sell your data, but we share your data with our partners. And he said, of course, by partners, he means the people that give them money. So
and Chris, he also points out that they say they won't share their raw data, but as soon as they tamper with a single pixel, it's processed and it's no longer considered raw data. So they're playing language games. And even a close reading of the contracts doesn't achieve the intent that you think people are going after. And they're just as happy, they're pleased as pigs in mud to have you think that they said one thing when they can say, oh no, we said we're not going to sell anything raw. That was processed. It's the same data. It's the same vulnerabilities. And I have one comment I want to make right before the intermission.
Tony, how's that? What's been an effective tactic for you guys over there?
Oh, I'll share that in just a moment. May I ask a quick question with regard to the point that Susan made?
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask if there's any type of if there's any say infographic presentation on that particular part of the contract, because that's getting into the really nitty gritty and the really fine detail, the minutia that I think is super important that we can kind of bring to the masses. And I would love if we could sort of consolidate that information. I'm wondering if there's, because I haven't seen, sort of in the social media realm, that part circulate, but that is super important to circulate. And I'm wondering if we can work on something to kind of hit some of the key points of what you just said, and maybe put an infographic out that we can sort of blast on social media.
I haven't seen it. I saw the recording of Padfield talking to somebody else. It's buried in my notes. I would have to go digging through and that would only get you as far as the recording. He was not showing any kind of an infographic.
Because I would imagine the contracts would be roughly the same. I mean, I guess that they would have their individuations with regard to individual cities being able to opt into, using the data sharing nationally. But I would imagine that fundamentally the contracts must be kind of the same with that regard. So if there was that problem with, or if you were able to identify that in your contract, it must be the same with ours in San Diego.
Well, I have not been through my contract yet. It's something I wake up every morning planning to do it, and somehow I never get around to it by the end of the day. There's always, there's always some toenails to clip or some dishes to wash before I get back into the contract. So I'm not familiar with it. From what I understand, there are default contracts there's default languages that you get if your municipality doesn't insist on customizing and putting it through its own legal department for their own purposes. When it goes to the legal departments, you still have all this boilerplate crap that preserves the company, Flock or Axon or whoever. It preserves their access to do what they damn well please. And it's the Harvard law of animal behavior. Under the most carefully controlled circumstances of contractual rules and stipulations and impenetrable language, the company does what it damn well pleases.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Does anybody else have anything else before we take a brief intermission?
Yeah, I want to pose one riddle. This is a little bit lighthearted, but I think we need it at this point. Humor. is always a way to leaven the serious things that we live with and deal with. And the question, and this is some of you, if you have a technology background like I do, you've probably heard it before. There was a time when the Ellison family was primarily Oracle databases, not all this political stuff they're doing, but it still scales. What is the difference between Larry Ellison and God? And Chris, I'm going to let you try to answer that on behalf of everybody. What is the difference between Larry Ellison and God?
I have no ideas.
God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison.
Very true.
Oh, I was going to think it had to do with behavior, right? Like he's like, hey, everyone will be on their best behavior because we're watching them all the time.
No, God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison.
I like that one.
Yes, anybody can use it. It's not copyrighted.
If you swap God for Antichrist, that might work with Peter Thiel too. Oh. But anyway, we're going to have a little intermission. We'll be right back.
All right,
how long?
T-minus 3 minutes. Digital freedom, yeah, that is our choice. Privacy doesn't mean not having a voice. What you want to share is only your choice. Yeah. How you gonna tell me what I can and cannot say online? That's some fascist dystopian Orwellian mind crime. These bureaucratic acrobatics got me spastic and dramatic. They want access to your Spotify, your TikTok automatic. Every habit that you practice, want to catalog and stash it in a database. Is massive as some DHS tactics, but it's tragic. These fanatics want to track us like we're cattle. Build a dragnet apparatus like the internet's a battle. I'm empowered by encryption, got conviction in my diction. Privacy's about permission, but it's freedom that's the mission for a healthy, happy nation. Not a brave new world creation where they're tracing conversations, placing agents in your basement. Really, it's about permission, but they just want our submission. Privacy, protection, freedom, they're the perfect coalition. That's the freedom I define. That's the future, that's the peak. You can freely speak your mind if you're allowed to hide. T-minus 2 minutes. They can't confine what I define. I'll shine a light and fight until we take back what is mine. That's the freedom I believe. That's the future, that's the peak. You can freely speak your mind when you're allowed to hide and speak. Hide and speak. Hide and speak. Hide and speak. T-minus 1 minute. Everybody posting every place that they've been. Trading privacy for likes, that's a heavy cost. In the ocean of data, the person gets lost. So we flip the switch, yeah, we go underground. Moving through the silence without making a sound. Not hiding because you are doing something wrong. Just defending your rights before they are gone. The room is secure, so let the session start. Speak from the brain or speak from the heart. Tell us your story, we unlock the doors. We invite the guests, and yeah, the floor is yours. You can keep the mask on. T-minus 30 seconds. Privacy expresses, but opinions are free. We amplify the voices that they try to call weak. Welcome to the stream, time to hide and speak. Hide and speak, stay in the shadows and make some noise. Hide and speak, hide and speak. Digital freedom, yeah, that is our choice. Hide and speak, hide and speak. Privacy doesn't mean not having a voice. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Hide and Speak. I just want to take a quick minute here to thank vp.net and bmail for making this possible. We're just going to watch a quick little video and then we'll be right back. Imagine you want to contact your friend. You got to send them something in the mail, the normal snail mail, if anybody still uses that. So one option, which is like regular email, is just a postcard. So you send that, and anybody who sees this thing along the way, they know who you are. They know who the person who's receiving it is. They know what day and time you sent it, or at least when it was post stamped. They know your address, and they know the content of the message, and they know the person's address. So they got everything. They got all the information they could possibly want. So the next option would be like some of these other encrypted email providers that don't encrypt the metadata, like Proton, for example. That's sort of like having a postcard where the message is invisible. Maybe that's in a secret code, so nobody along the way can see the message, but they could still see the sender, they still see the receiver, they see which city it was sent from, they see your address, they see the receiver's address. More than enough information in a lot of cases to figure out what's going on right there. And again, like the subject line, that's like on the, the front of it says like, greetings from Hawaii. It's like, okay, well, now this person's in Hawaii now. And that's kind of like having the subject line visible. So then B-mail is like, you take a letter and you put it inside a safe and you seal that safe with a digital code and you ship the safe to the person. And he is the only other person in the entire world that knows what that code is. That's how B-mail is. So anybody along the way, good luck. Like, you're not getting inside. This is a safe. That's kind of how B-mail works. It's basically a vault, and the only people who have the code are you and the person that you're sending it to. All right, so let's get to the very important part here about how people can get involved, because while all of you people are amazing and you're doing great work, we need a lot more of us here to all get involved and really make this thing happen. So say if I'm sitting at home watching right now and I want to know if my own town has these cameras, we go to DeFlock.org, which I'm just going to put the address right here. Everybody, if you haven't checked this out yet, check it out. It's really, really cool. There's a lot of awesome features too. You can even plan a route. So if you want to go somewhere, you can even find a way to get there, avoiding as many cameras as possible. Really, really cool tool. Check it out. And like people were saying before, this is something, if you see a camera in your town, check the map. If it's not there, add it. That's the most basic thing you can do to help out and help other people stay informed, which is great. But the other thing that you can do, if you go there, there's a page, deflock.org/groups. It's also there's a menu on the top right. You can go in there to find it in local groups. And there's, I believe, 69 different groups on there right now that you can get involved in. So there's probably one near you. So go check that out if you want to get involved and help kind of target your efforts, which is a really good way to be as effective as possible. But here's a good question. If somebody only has like 1 hour a month that they can devote to trying to help this cause, what is something they can actually do to help in that 1 hour?
I say educate the people around them. The more people that know what is going on and what the capabilities of the systems are, how the data is transferred, how the data is not really secure, the more people that understand these things, the more likely that they are to want to get involved as well. So as you educate people, you slowly build a community within your city or town, and that community of people will eventually figure out direction to move forward to help stop these things.
Yeah, I've got something here, just like a little, I don't know about cheat sheet, but kind of a cheat sheet. So, officials and legislators pay attention to the numbers of people and how long they stay in a stream. So even if you're not actually doing something and you're not watching, but there's an important action item going on, just open your computer and join the live stream and watch your city councilors. But go do something else. Just leave the camera on if you're so busy, and that's still like adding a number to the tally. And I think the other part of this is it kind of depends on how organized like your local effort is. Like if your local effort is putting out like stock drafts that you can just mass send letters to councilors, your legislators, that you can do that really quickly. Otherwise, even just writing something out real quick and sending just like, hey, I oppose ALPRs in my city and county, and just send that in, and that's all you got to say. You don't have to spend a bunch of time. You don't have to do a big research project. Just state your opinion. You don't want this here.
That's a good tip about keeping the stream open too. I haven't thought about that, but you're right. Everything's about numbers these days. What do you think, Tony? If somebody's going to get an hour a month, what should they do?
I agree with what was just previously said. I would say that if someone only had an hour a month, I would say every time you make a public comment in a city council meeting, which you have to do 24 hours ahead of time before the actual meeting takes place. But like for any of our organizations, what I've started doing is leaving the Zoom links to the city council meetings in our bio, so that I just make it super easy. I have the Zoom links to not only our city council, but also to the county board of supervisors Zoom meetings as well, so that people can directly participate, not just on Flock, but on all issues. And it really is, like as was previously said, a numbers game that they really pay attention to. The big thing is just being consistent, and if you only have an hour, maybe leaving a public comment, maybe dispersing, so that, like, say if you have a draft written public comment already, so that you maybe just space that time out, so that you leave one public comment a week, or maybe twice a week, because in city council in San Diego, it's Mondays and Tuesdays are the normal days of their meetings, and if you just left a public comment, one for Monday and one for Tuesday, saying the same thing, and then you multiplied that, 4 weeks in a month, then you have, all of a sudden you have, what is that, 2 public comments a week times 4, you got 8 public comments, all of a sudden, or more than that, I'm sorry, so you have 16 public comments, by one person in 1 hour, and that's all just from sending in public comments at the strategic times, maybe setting an alarm and then having a drafted email, and then just, maybe changing a sentence in it every time, but just staying consistent in the approach.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, I talk to people a lot about these things, and you hear regularly from people that, like, why don't the politicians do what we want? They're not representing the people. So I challenge them and I say, well, have you told the politicians what you want? And they just stare at me blankly most of the time. And like, well, how can you expect them to do what you want if they don't know what you want? Like, that's on us. We have to make it clear to them. And, the thing is, companies like Flock, they've got billions of dollars at stake. So they're going to make sure there are people in every single city council meeting representing them. They've gotten caught before with their own employees as well as relatives of their employees posing as citizens of cities that they don't even live in, to be like, no, I feel so much safer living here now, knowing that their Flock camera is keeping us safe. And they've gotten caught. Like, one of their chief marketing people was in a meeting posing to be a citizen in some city he doesn't live in. So they have billions of dollars at stake. So they're going to be there every time to make their opinion known. So we have to make sure we're there as well. We have to make sure that we're there in larger numbers and we're there more frequently, so the politicians know, no, we're the right side. We're what the people actually represent. We don't want this crap. So part of this is on us too. Not us specifically here. Like, we're the few that are really trying to do something, but like the general public, like, we have responsibility in this too. We have to be there in force to make it clear that we're not okay with this. And that's the only way any real change is going to happen. What do you think, Susie? If 1 hour a month, what would you do with that?
Definitely need to rouse the rabble. If all you can do is talk to a few people, 10, 20 minutes each, know about it, do your research whenever you can, but have some information about people's concerns and why you're concerned about this, and talk to people. Anybody you can. It doesn't. If it's local, that's fine. But if it's people farther away, it's the same problem. And as we've discussed earlier, the issues are immediate and local, but they're also long-term, and they're national and global. So know your stuff, learn about it. If you need to, split your time between reading a few articles online, just Google them and find there's all kinds of stuff on the internet. And then tell a few people, hey, we really need to do something about this.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. Being informed is, a very important part to being able to speak to people about this. So you guys, where do you go for reliable information? Do you have any sources that are your go-to place to find out about this stuff?
Local public radio has been great for us. The reporters are committed and honest. That's where we go first.
There's new stuff coming out almost every day. For the last several weeks, I have been looking at stuff on the internet. You can Google it. You can Google any question you want about it. It has to do with law enforcement using cameras improperly, camera companies, how much money they're making. You can Google anything, or just put in Flock and you'll get a whole bunch of things. I have been investigating this. I am maintaining a spreadsheet. Chris, you and I can talk. We can make that available. It's growing every day, but we can take snapshots and make it available to people who want to know various things about what's wrong with this industry and why are we concerned. I've got a great resource, and I'm very eager to share it as widely as possible.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Thank you. Chris, you and I will talk after this meeting. There's a lot to go over and debrief.
Absolutely. Beautiful. That's what this is all about. Go ahead.
I don't know about like direct like websites that totally focus on the whole thing, but I just want to point out that like The Intercept does a lot of really good coverage on this issue, and so does 404 Media. I feel like while there's a lot of coverage across a couple different places, those are really like those journalists do some of the best work on this.
Yeah, The Intercept does a lot of great stuff for sure. All right. Anybody else have any good sources for information that you use?
Oh, Wired has some good stuff. 404 Media has some good stuff. The ACLU has some really good stuff. I've got links to a lot of websites, and we'll make this available.
Beautiful.
Oh, the EFF. I don't know why that seemed obvious.
Yep. That's got to be said for sure. Absolutely. EFF is a great one. EFF.org. All right.
And watch Dr. Padfield's recordings.
Yes.
I forget the name of his outfit, but it's
Business Reform.
Business Reform. Jonathan, Jon, Jonathan Padfield. He's really good. And I know he's been on this cast as well.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's got a lot of great content there. And he gets really deep into the stuff, but he has a great way of explaining really complicated topics in a way that it's actually really easy to understand a lot of times. So definitely check that out if you haven't. Let's see. I believe we have a few questions here from the audience. Let me pull those up.
Hey, Chris, while you're doing that, I forgot something in my little rant earlier, and I feel like it's really important for other people dealing with Flock to know about is paying attention to Washington with SB 6002. They used that method to, it used to be that you could do public records requests against Flock cameras, and in Washington they found a way to stop that, and they also did it with SB 1516 here in Oregon, but through a different mechanism. I feel like the one in Washington is really just when you're trying to tackle these through public records requests to try and see who they're targeting and how and when, preventing them from putting this kind of state legislator in place to prevent you from getting that information. This should be really high on the watch list.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's a great point. Thank you. Let's see what we got here. If cities deem it necessary, what can communities do to ask for high levels of oversight? What would be the most effective way of going about that? I honestly don't think it's possible. Does anybody have any ideas on how real oversight could even work?
So the CCOPS program that ACLU introduced is one method of doing that. How to get a city to take that on, that's something that I'm currently trying to wrap my head around, because that's something that I would like in my city. One thing
I have a thought on that.
Okay.
So in Upper Arlington, we're only allowed to speak when it's a legislative item, and the council obviously controls which legislative items come before them, and so it's pretty easy for them to silence their voices. The other component they have that we're looking at is what's called a working session, and a member has to request, a council member has to request, it only takes one. So a working session can open up all sorts of dialogue between citizens and cops and city council, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a working session. And so that is the component, at least locally in Upper Arlington, we're contemplating trying to get that conversation going, try to get more information to city councils to that working session mechanism. I don't know if you can pressure, all you need is one. At least for us, all we need is one to sort of implement that kind of thing.
The problem with this issue is what we've seen, that we found that it's totally ineffective to try to constrain these companies into safety. In the first place, the whole technology has been developed to deny and defy our Fourth Amendment rights. And when a technology has been developed to do something that nefarious, there's no way you're going to rope it down into something good. So resistance and not having it is really the best thing. You can try to load it up with conditions and qualifications and make it more cumbersome, but I think that's a losing effort simply because it was designed to resist and defy that. So I don't think that there is going to be a satisfactory answer to how can we control these efforts. That they are not controllable. That is why they were developed. They were developed to do terrible things. And no matter what you put on them, they're going to do terrible things. And if they need to, they'll defy whatever constraints you have, and they'll thumb their nose at the law and any kind of restrictions. So I think that that's kind of a false hope.
Yeah, and I think this is a great topic to bring up here too. And they've kind of shown us their cards here already, right? Like we were just talking about earlier about Dayton, Ohio. The branding from Flock and these other ALPR companies are, oh, we work with law enforcement and we're just trying to catch criminals and save kids. But then why are you leaving the cameras on after you don't have a connection with the local police force anymore? So for what purpose does that data and that information, those cameras still collecting all of that and surveilling people? Who is that going to? That's clearly not law enforcement and not the local police departments. So
well, actually, in some cases they do. See, in some cases, what they've done there, and this is pretty dirty. So a city will have the Flock cameras, and then they just vote to ban them. So they vote they don't want to use them anymore. They end their Flock contract, but Flock keeps the cameras there. And then they end up finding out that Flock kept the cameras running and was giving, so that way other departments can still access it through the nationwide lookup tool. And then nearby cities were using it to run searches in that city and then share that information back with the city that banned the Flock cameras. So they canceled their contract, but we're still essentially just running searches through another police office. So that's a way that when they've shut down the cameras still stay active. They still keep sharing that data with other agencies, and then those agencies will share it right back with the town that's not supposed to be using them in the first place. Very dirty.
I think there's some nuance here that has to do with organizing, and I think that for people like us who have spent a lot of time looking into this, that it's easiest for us to see how kind of hopeless the idea of regulating these companies in this current atmosphere is. But at the same time, we're also trying to organize people who may only be able to give an hour a month or a week or whatever. Like, that's part of our discussion here. And those kinds of people need to see wins. It's not just like, oh, I'm so enraged about this system, because we've all been enraged about the system for a lot of reasons for a long time. We need to, like, hey, is there a measurable, like, something that we're going to gain that we're fighting towards here? And I think that so I feel like Ben's a good example for us, like, where we have gotten Flock taken down. We've got them to push out Axon cameras and have like kind of a community discussion right now going on about Axon, and kept ALPR out of the county's sheriff's bundle that they got recently. And these are all like little wins that we get to stack up and say, like, hey, we're making some progress. And on this like law abiding, like what citizens action can do level, we want to achieve this slightly far out goal of having some, not just like a community advisory board where they just blow us off, but like actual community involvement in how our surveillance architecture is and how policing works in our community. And I think that seems so much more achievable to people than being like, oh, hey, we're going to take out Gotham, we're going to take out Andoril, and like down goes the surveillance state. Like, especially when that is something that's international and it jumps. Like, you couldn't just take it out here in the nation and then have it change. Someone's talking about in the comments right now, this is an issue. This is an issue in Europe. This is an issue on both sides of the aisle. This is a massive discussion. Society as a whole needs to talk about the panopticon and how it's going to affect us. And this is a measurable step into becoming engaged in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is important to know that, like, there are a lot of victories here. Like, just in the last few weeks on our blog, we covered Edmonds, Washington canceled their Flock contract. In Boulder, Colorado, actually, Will Freeman, the creator of DeFlock, and somebody else are suing them, saying that the cameras there are actually against the Constitution, the Colorado Constitution. So they're hoping to get them canceled there. Texas, Bandera, Texas, just ended their flock contract as well. The Dayton, Ohio one, they've ended their contract and stuck trash bags on them. I think last week it was like Columbus Heights, Minnesota, I believe, canceled their contract. So, I mean, like, all of these started with one or two citizens that were like, I don't like this, and started going to city council meetings, started making noise, started talking to people, and it's a snowball effect. Because like we said, like, everybody's against this stuff. Like, it's extremely easy to get support for this because nobody really likes this stuff. So, you know, there are a lot of wins to be had here, and it starts locally. It's the easiest way to get involved and to start making change. And like, it's a snowball effect. If a bunch of individual towns are banning their contracts and making laws, kicking flock out, and the ALPR in general, then you have a much better case to go in front of the state and say, hey, look, the people don't want this here. That's why all these individual laws are popping up. We need one at the state level now. And, you know, and if a bunch of states start doing it, that's when we can look into a national law. So it starts small and it can snowball bigger and bigger and bigger. So, like, we don't have to look at it and say, I can't get rid of flock in the world. There's too many of them. Like, if you just focus on your community and what's immediately in front of you and what's affecting your life, and we get enough people to do that, it eventually will spread and we can actually make some real change here. Because, I mean, we're seeing it. It's happening. Like, people, when they push back, largely have been successful. People are able to get these things taken out of their cities. So we just got to keep pushing. Let's see. We've got another question here too. Do you know of any cases that IJ is leading that might actually win in court on Fourth Amendment grounds? Curious if anyone has any knowledge on that development. Anybody know that one? I don't.
I happen to have IJ's Liberty and Law June magazine in front of me, and they have an article challenging the plate reader panopticon from coast to coast by Michael Sophir. And so they had tried in Norfolk, Virginia, which has 175 AI-powered cameras. And after discovery, the court denied the motion to dismiss their case and granted summary judgment in Norfolk's favor. And they say there's one silver lining. The court acknowledged that an even more extensive surveillance system could run afoul of the Fourth Amendment. And that led them into their latest challenge, which is in San Jose, California, that operates nearly 500 ALPRs. And many of them are in blocks with sensitive locations like hospice care facilities, religious organizations, immigration lawyers' offices. They're not just standard traffic cameras. Every time a car passes, they snap and upload a picture. AI reads the license plate and identifies other key features like make, model, cover, just any standard ALPR stuff. So they've got a client, one of three clients they feature here. His name is Tony Tan. He left China to build a life in America, in part because of China's sweeping use of surveillance to monitor its citizens. And he doesn't want to see this country turn into that type of place he fled. So they've got a class action challenging the city's use of ALPR cameras. And that's just something to look at in the future. I don't know if they have what kind of chance they have, but it is Fourth Amendment that they're trying to protect there.
Awesome, man. Look into that. Honestly, I haven't heard of that one. I'll have to look into that this week for sure. All right, let's see. Is there anything important that we haven't gotten to that anybody wants to bring up that you think people need to know about?
I think there is something. It is ALPR adjacent. So I want you to picture a hypothetical scenario. I'm not familiar, or I'm not sure if anybody here knows what Axon's Fusus is, but right now in Bend, the city is using government grants to put cameras inside retail stores and using Axon's Fusus system to have real-time access to those cameras through it's basically a mini fusion center that they're building. They're building these out in cities all over the place. Now, some of these same retail giants here in Bend, they don't have to have city council approval to install ALPR cameras on their parking lots, on their private property. So one little integration, you've got ALPR in the parking lot and Fusus cameras in the inside the store and outside the store. And even if you've stopped it at the city level, you still have that same type of data being fed to the law enforcement through Fusus, and who knows who else has access to that. In Oregon, Normalcy mentioned earlier that that the flock contract here, there were 279 queries from ICE. What hasn't been mentioned is that ICE queried the Oregon State Police 1.4 million times, and Oregon is a sanctuary state, so that is a no-no. And where the gap is for me is trying to figure out if Deschutes County or the Bend Police Department had any part in that. There's got to be a data feed to get to the Oregon State Police. So somewhere there's a connection between Oregon State, the Bend Police Department or Deschutes County Sheriff's Office and Oregon State Police where that leak happened. Maybe No Mercy has something to add to this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was slightly focused on another action thing that I had in my head. I think so. Fusus uses real-time action, real-time crime centers, essentially. And these are not, as far as I know, it's not like they're always connected to the fusion centers that this live stream has talked about before. But sometimes they are, and that overlap, like what we're talking about with Oregon State Police, is really easy to happen in that sort of environment. I have not been able to find out whether locally they call it the Area Real-Time Information Center, I think is what our local one is. And I haven't figured out if that's like just like a single officer, a couple officers just like performing a function, or if there's a software layer behind this and how it connects into things. But I know in some places it's an actual center like it would be for a fusion center. And that's what Fusus has a lot to do with. What's up, Susie?
Finish and then I'll go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's it. I'll save my other topic for after this.
Okay. Chris, is it okay if I take the floor?
Yeah, please go ahead.
There's several, in what you're saying, Paul, there's several dots that are begging to be connected. In the first place, Flock's business model has always been not just to go to municipalities and local institutions, but to go to retail, to go to private entities, to go to homeowners associations. So all of these are connected into their network. Yeah. The other thing is the retail crisis myth. A while ago, there was a lot of brouhaha that retail was being sabotaged, and there's a whole there's a whole crisis in retail theft and shrinkage, and you need surveillance and monitoring to fight it. And it was because of this that many state organizations, state institutions developed grant proposals, grant programs. We have this in Illinois through the Attorney General's office. There's a grant program that will give local municipalities grants to bring in surveillance cameras. It's connected to retail theft. And so you see this commercial and governmental kind of collaboration going on. I don't understand exactly why the state gives municipality monies for cameras when they're concerned with retail, but somehow it's hand in glove, and that's going on. So you've got some connections there that are dots begging to be connected. Now, the ironic thing is that if you start looking up retail crisis and retail theft on the internet, you will find papers and articles that say there really was no crisis. It's not a big deal, and this is kind of a bogus issue, but it's was the justification for developing a lot of these grant programs. Now you're saying that the states are actually giving grants to retailers. That's something I haven't heard before, and it's new information, but it's kind of closing a circle. And as I say, there's a lot of dots here that want to be connected. But I would also caution once again that this whole concern with retail and crime and apprehending criminals, and our municipality makes an argument that if there's a car that comes into our area that was stolen, it's probably going to be used for some other crime, and that's why we need information on it. This is all pretext. It's not documented. There are no real studies or statistics that show that cameras actually prevent crime. And the anecdotes that say they help solve them, they can easily be countered with anecdotes of horror stories as well. We kind of talked about that before. But all of this is very murky, and I think I would really encourage people who are really concerned not only to think about the arguments against these kinds of actions, but how this is a smokescreen and this is a pretext for inuring us to being surveilled so that we can have a society more like China, as we heard about, where people leave because they don't want to be surveilled.
That was really well said.
Susie, I'd like to follow up on that with you. Last month at the national level.
Who's speaking? Who's speaking?
My name is Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you. You don't turn on your camera, I don't know.
I had to turn it off because I was having audio issues.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, last month at the national level, organized retail theft grant is what you're going to want to look for next. They've just passed a bill through the House. It's expected to pass through the Senate, and that's going to create a lot more funding for these types of things. And it also creates a national crime center where the retailers can connect directly to the national government, and it takes a layer out of the pipeline where they don't have to go through the local police. And in order to be considered organized retail crime, it's a $5,000 trigger in any 1 year.
Jonathan, just to plug this in there, so people have the actual numbers. It's Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, CORCA. It's House Resolution 2853 in the House, and there's a Senate companion of S1404. So for people wanting to track that will make it easier.
So we just had a question rolling. Oh, do you have something, Susie? Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing, another point, and I want to expand the scope of our discussion a little bit more. For people who are concerned enough that they've been on this live stream for 2 hours, I'm probably talking to the choir, but if they need to know this hymn, that's fine. We have Garrett Langley on record a long time ago saying that the purpose of Flock is to eliminate property crime in the United States. They've gone on record saying that's their mission. Besides the fact that what we're seeing, most of the property crime, and this has been documented, most of the property crime that they actually interfere with or prevent, it's very low level. It's very petty. And the real crime issue, and this is implied, what defines a crime, what's treated as a crime, what are people concerned about as crime. The real crime issues in this country are not petty property crimes. The real crime issue that we need to worry about is white collar crime, and that isn't at all being detected by anything like an ALPR, Flock, or otherwise. And the whole idea that property crime is our most significant kind of crime, that's, as Robert Reich would say, that's a choice. That's a story that is being told by the people who have a vested interest in selling that's of concern. We have much bigger crime issues, crimes against the country, crimes against the population, and white collar crime in particular, and graft and corruption. flock cameras, no cameras are going to do anything about that. I wanted to make that point too.
Yeah, unless there's going to be flock cameras over the desks of politicians, I don't see how they're going to help that much.
Trump's auto pen, that's where you want a flock camera.
Yeah. Let's see. For those involved in activism within their respective city governments, any info on how to anticipate or prevent the use of signal trace? Not sure if it's made its way into towns yet. Have any of you been dealing with signal trace yet? Any word on that?
For my research, I don't think it's actually, it's an Italian company that's rolling it out. And I think it's still kind of in its early stages. But that's in regards to ALPR use. The technology itself seems like it's something that could be in use in other places. It can't be that hard to pick up, things actively searching for networks to connect to, and then collect and aggregate that. That seems pretty simple to me. I think it's really scary to imagine. I'm not so I'm concerned about all of it, but like a fixed ALPR doing that is one thing. I'm a lot more concerned about the ALPRs and fleet vehicles doing that. That's just that's war driving, not quite to the level of it, but it's the same thing. Yeah,
it's pretty scary technology.
I have some thoughts on that. And I think this applies to more than just signal trace. I don't know the level of involvement the person that asked the question is, but everything happens in contracts. Contracts, if you're lucky, they go on an agenda, which your city normally publishes before their meetings. If you're not lucky, it happens with the city manager's office, and the city manager normally does a city manager report to the city council members. So you can look at the city manager's reports, your agenda packets for the business meetings. And then another place is the procurement team. And I've actually started recently, the city of Bend goes through something like it's a procurement portal where they have to list everything that they want to purchase for people to submit bids to. Everything's out there publicly online for their bids submission. So I've been tracking that. Now, signal trace may come in through a contract or added onto a contract through the police department where it can't be tracked. So there's always that option. But if you're looking for how to head something off, you need to be not just popping in once in a while, but checking every agenda, keeping tabs on the procurement team, and reading the city manager's reports if you have access to those.
Yeah, I want to actually ask them because I was thinking about this a lot more. So I think that there is not a way for this is kind of why I would lean towards CCOPs, right? Because there's not a way to prevent the use of a lot of these technologies without more involvement. Like when I first was realizing that these fleet cameras and some of the fixed ALPRs were hardware capable of doing a lot of the technology that wasn't rolled out in a subscription. That so in other words, like this camera is able to do everything. And they just subscribe to a certain amount of it, and they can just back in. I think Axon's documentation says like 10 minutes it takes for them to update the subscription on the software level. And next thing they know, it's got the next features. That's I think kind of like John was saying, that's not going to show up. That's not going to show up in your documentation. They're going to say, hey, we subscribed onto this extra part of the package through Axon, and they're just going to roll it out. It was the Brown shooting when they just openly admitted in the news. I was like, oh my gosh, they just did this. They openly admitted the news that without the municipality's approval, they just activated some sort of tracking feature through their ALPR to be able to follow the shooter. And okay, that's great in that situation. But the point is that they had a contract with municipalities saying that this is what the features were, and they just on their own decided. Flock was like, hey, we're going to turn this on. That's there's nothing you can do about that unless you are directly at the implementation.
Well, the other concern there too is like there have been times where their hardware was capable of more than they were claiming it was capable of. You know, like early on when it was supposedly just a license plate reader and very, very basic. I remember somebody ripped one open and found microphones in there and audio processing stuff, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, where did that come from? And then another one found that it had the ability to record video, and then started looking through their privacy policy and couldn't find anything about it in there. So they started looking through their marketing materials, and in the marketing materials, there was something that said, like, while this only takes still photos, if you have a case where you know, video would be more helpful, you can contact us, and for a fee, we can retrieve the video. They're like, well, you can.
It's getting worse now.
Yeah, if you can retrieve the video, that means you're recording video for everything. And this was back when it was supposedly only taking still photos of license plates. So I mean, like, if right from the beginning they were taking video, like now with who knows what they're doing at this point? You know what I mean? Like they have never seemed to have admitted everything that they're up to. So we don't even really.
They won't have to anymore, Chris. At Axon Week, they're rolling out a new thing. I think it's called Axon Eras, where what they're going to do is sell one subscription. And the CEO made it. He said, in the last year, we had so many updates come through that it took 2 full days for my team to describe to me all the updates. And then he said, you guys shouldn't have to do this contract by contract. We're now introducing Axon Eras, one subscription, and you get all of our updates in real time. And so that's scary. What's coming?
Yeah.
You won't be able to fight it.
Exactly.
once that Era subscription is paid for, it's all over. And I've been tracking the Axon firmware updates and all that. They do provide capabilities, increased capabilities and changes on a regular basis.
It's not, and again, it's not just software. So since we're talking about Axon, so Axon, after being for people who know, their old ethics board failed really miserably, and part of that was around facial recognition, but also around drones. So this whole time period passed, and then they went and did a facial recognition test up in Edmonton, in Canada. And just from everything I can tell, they use Corsair AI to do their facial recognition, AI facial recognition. From everything I can tell, the cameras that are in use there, the Fleet 3, is the same ones that they have in the US. So it's very likely that all of these fleet vehicle ALPR cameras are capable of facial recognition on the hardware level and just require a software update. And like this is going into another territory, but Corsair AI has been found to be used in Gaza and the West Bank for training, as well as has a lot of this other intelligence stack layer. But that one's, I can't directly prove that one, but Corsair AI definitely was. So we have this thing that's possibly able to be turned on here without even having contractual decisions to do so. And yeah.
Scary stuff. Yeah, Susie, what's up?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that this technology is very frequently either it's doing things that they haven't told you about, that maybe you haven't paid for, but it's there, or at least it's capable. So there's an ignorance factor where if they just don't mention it, doesn't mean it's not there. And the other thing is they lie. They'll say that something isn't there or isn't working when it really is. My experience in our city council, we've been told, and this is the standard line from our city manager who responds to my concerns, but doesn't really. And they say, oh, there's no pictures taken unless there's concern. Unless a license plate corresponds to their hot list, which is their lists of license plates of concern at any time, unless there's a hit on the hot list, they're not taking a picture. Well, that doesn't make sense, because the only way they can determine if a plate is on the hot list is to take a picture and compare it. So
That
they
makes
lie
sense.
when they say there's nothing done until there's a match. A match can be made only after something is done. And
Right.
they're counting on me to be snowed or overwhelmed or just not understanding things. And they don't understand that I have a basic understanding of data and how it works. And that in order for there to be a match, there has to be two things to be compared. They don't,
Yeah.
they underestimate me if they think that I don't know that. And
That's like
so
when-
every one of us can be underestimated. We need to stay on our
Mm.
toes and see where are they lying.
Yeah, that's like when the Alexa came out and they said, "Don't worry, it's only listening if you tell it to." And it's like, well, how does it know that I'm telling it to if it's not listening? Like, you're not making sense.
Aligned with this. Aligned with this is all the cameras that, or all the, when they're like, oh, hey, we're not collecting faces, we're just collecting video. What they're doing is they're using an algorithm to identify where the face is inside of the video that they're collecting and then scratching that face out. So you're relying on them to not be collecting metadata or doing the identity stuff before it scratches your face out.
Yeah. Maybe I'm crazy, but I just don't trust them. How about you, Tony? I haven't heard from you in a bit. You still with us? There we are.
Hey, I'm doing well. So I just wanted to follow up on something that was spoken about earlier. So I've been working with No Data Centers in Imperial, NIMBY Imperial, a couple different organizations to oppose the big data center that was slated for Imperial Valley. It would be the biggest data center in California. And they just successfully passed a moratorium after the County Board of Supervisors a couple months ago had voted 4-1 to pass a lot merger that would help facilitate the construction of the AI data center. A couple months later, after just intense public pressure, public scrutiny, and after getting the city council to put a moratorium to vote, and the city of El Centro itself voting in favor of imposing a moratorium. Now the County Board of Supervisors, their tone was way different in the meeting last week, and they were hosting a town hall with Senator Alex Padilla, who's introducing a bill that would basically substantially regulate AI data centers in such a way that they wouldn't be created unless they radically reduce the amount of water that they use and the amount of impact that they have on the environment. It's not ideal, but it's a start. But I spoke with him. The reason why I'm mentioning it is because several people during the questions period afterward asked him some comments, and several people mentioned Flock, and they asked him his position on Flock, and he mentioned that he had worked either for or with law enforcement at the beginning of his career, and he said while he supports law enforcement, he said that he did see Flock as a violation of our constitutional right to privacy, and that was a relief to hear. And I spoke with him afterward, after the event was over, and I got the contact of all of his different offices, and spoke with his office representatives, and spoke with him directly about getting a letter written to our city council in San Diego to oppose Flock and to encourage them to DeFlock San Diego. And I'm even wondering if he'd be willing to go a step further and potentially support some legislation to ban flock cameras in California. It's worth a shot, and I'm gonna keep following up with his office to see if I can't get a meeting with him to see his willingness on that issue.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that. Very cool. Well, we're going pretty long here. We going to do one more thing here that we do every week. It's called the Hero of the Week. So we're just going to run this video real quick, and we'll be right back.
We look for the champions leading the way. Go fight for your internet rights every day. It's freedom and justice that we truly seek. We salute the hide and speak hero of the week.
The hide and speak hero of the week is you. I wanted to take this chance to remind our audience that every one of you has a hero inside of you just waiting to be let out. All that is missing is action. You don't need a billion-dollar company, a computer science degree, or a massive online audience to make a difference. And that's a big part of what the Hero of the Week segment is all about. In fact, we started doing this to honor Jonathan from Bend, Oregon, an everyday citizen who got sick and tired of seeing flock cameras going up in his own town. Despite having no experience in politics, he started going to meetings, got involved, and was able to get flock banned from his town. And he's now working to affect legislation at the state level. All it took was the desire and the willingness to see it through. And every one of you watching this has the ability to do the same. You don't have to accept living in a surveillance state, and you don't have to accept that you are powerless, because you are not, and you are not alone. A great first step is to look for a local group to join so your efforts are more targeted. If we all work together, we will make a difference. After the stream, head over to DeFlock.org/groups or click local groups in the Get Involved menu to see a list of 69 independent local groups that you can join. And to every activist and organization out there fighting for our privacy and rights, including those on our panel today, thank you so much. We genuinely appreciate you. And for those of you that were with us last week, you probably remember that our Hero of the Week was the guy that started this whole movement, Will Freeman. We have never replayed a hero segment on the stream before, but it only makes sense to honor the creator of DeFlock while discussing a movement he inspired.
The hide and speak hero of the week.
Our hide and speak hero of the week is Will Freeman, creator of DeFlock.org. A few years ago, Will started noticing license plate readers going up on street corners. Most of us would have grumbled and moved on. Will built something instead. It's called DeFlock, a free crowdsourced map of these cameras all across the country. Today, it tracks more than 100,000 of them. Think what that means. Before DeFlock, you had no idea you were being photographed on your way to work. Now you can pull up a map and see every camera between your house and the grocery store. Flock sent him a cease and desist letter, but Will kept going. And last month, he put his own name on a lawsuit challenging Boulder, Colorado's cameras after the city refused to show him the data it collected on his own car. Will saw a problem, he built the solution, and he continues to fight back against Flock Safety's surveillance network. And that's why Will Freeman is our Hide and Speak Hero of the Week.
Hide and speak hero of the week.
Absolutely is a hero, and he's kind of the man why we're all here today. So we really appreciate him, and I thought it was worth running that back again. So before we go, I just want to go around the room here and ask you guys to tell everybody where they can find your organization and how they can see you online. So let's go, Tony. Where can people find you guys online?
Right now, I'm actually contacting DeFlock to get listed on the official DeFlock.org to get listed on their official local groups. I noticed that all of their local groups have a specific website. We don't have a website right now. We just have an Instagram, and that's how we've been largely coalescing is through different channels of different activist networks that we're connected to through San Diego. And so we co-broadcast with them. But we also are attached to their San Diego Trust Coalition, and they deal with a lot of like privacy advocacy in general. And DeFlock is just kind of like the specific flock branch, the very specific flock advocacy branch. And we deal with like the more cultural music aspects related. The question that you asked me earlier about where we had found success, I think it's in having kind of some cultural influence in reaching out to artists and musicians and asking them to make music, songs, stuff that even like we had an artist make a DeFlock song that he performed before city council, and KPBS was there, and they ended up picking it up for their segment, and it was like the first thing that they broadcast on their segment, and he kind of went viral for it. And things like that just really kind of help get the message to a larger audience. So anyway, but where we could be found is DeFlock SD or DeFlock San Diego if you're on Instagram. And then we're working on getting listed with DeFlock.org right now.
Excellent. All right. Who else? Susie, how can people find you guys online?
Okay. IndivisiblehP.com. I'm here mostly through connections with our local Indivisible group. You can Google Indivisible. You can get to the national. We're here in Highland Park, Illinois, which, yes, is the same community that had the mass shooting several years ago. And they use that as reasons we want flock, but I don't think so.
Very good. And thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. This has been awesome. So before we go, I did want to thank vp.net again for making this possible. It is the only verifiable zero knowledge VPN service, which means you don't need to trust it because you can verify its inability to log anytime you want. And we actually just added a second VPN service that's free for all vp.net users. It's called Dissent, and it was specifically built to be censorship resistant. To block dissent effectively, a state would have to block all of Cloudflare, which would block more than 1 in 5 websites on the internet, which makes it a lot more costly to block that. So you can learn more about that at godissent.com. And finally, check out bmail.ag, the only verifiably private encrypted email service. We actually just added private encrypted video conferencing to it as well. So something else to go check out there. And you can actually start an account for free there. And I want to thank our amazing guests for joining us today. This has been really awesome. And also for fighting back against the surveillance state. And yeah, also, I just want everybody remember next week we have the shows at a different time, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday with the legendary cryptographer, Daniel J. Bernstein. So make sure you come in, check that out. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. He's got a lot of cool stories to tell. And if you don't feel comfortable knowing that a private company has over 100,000 cameras silently tracking your movements with no warrant and minimal oversight, remember that you are not alone. In fact, most people do not want to be watched, including the Flock CEO himself, who called DeFlock terroristic simply because they started watching back. We all deserve to live in a world where a simple trip to the grocery store doesn't result in a dozen pictures of your vehicle from every intersection along the way. And thanks to the important work of our guests and the many activists like them in local organizations across America, that world is closer to becoming reality. But to get there, we need all the help we can get from ordinary citizens who have had enough. The only requirement is that you want to get Flock out of your community. So please go to deflock.org, click the local groups link in the Get Involved menu, and look for a group near you. There are currently 69 listed on that page and more being added regularly, so there's probably one near you. It's time to start watching the watchers. That is our show. To everyone who sat in tonight, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for standing up to the surveillance state. We have more power than most people realize. We just need to use it effectively, and coordinating with the local group is an excellent place to start. So, thank you so much, and we'll see you here next week. Thank you.
vp.net, the only VPN that can't spy on you. Your browsing data says more about you than you think. From marketing companies to hackers, everyone wants it because it's worth everything, and they'll stop at nothing to spy on you. Your searches and the sites you visit, that's enough to paint a picture. Most VPNs claim to protect your privacy, but here's the problem. You can't actually verify what they're doing behind the scenes. That's where vp.net is different. We're the only VPN built with Intel's SGX technology, the same trusted security used in banking, healthcare, and even the automotive industry. Here's the key. vp.net runs inside a secure black box, a protected environment so locked down that even we can't see inside it. That means no one, not even vp.net itself, can spy on your activity when you connect. You can verify in real time that your VPN is doing exactly what it promises, protecting you and nothing else. vp.net means no hidden tracking, no broken promises, just real provable privacy. vp.net, the only VPN you don't have to trust, because you can verify.
At its peak, we stay in the shadows and make some noise. At its peak, digital freedom, yeah, that is our choice. At its peak, privacy doesn't mean not having a voice. At its peak, what you want to share is only your choice.